Hey there, welcome to the Aligned Businesswoman podcast. I'm your host, Vanessa Miller, business strategist, mindset coach, and mom who refuses to believe you have to choose between scaling your business and having a life you love. If you've done the vision boards, downloaded the freebies, and still find yourself hustling harder than you want to admit, this show is for you. Each week, I share practical strategies mixed with subconscious rewiring and feminine energetics so you can attract clients, stabilize revenue, and grow your business in a way that actually feels good. Because you deserve consistent income and a life outside your laptop. Let's get into it. Welcome, Marta, to the Aligned Businesswoman podcast. I'm so honored to have you again on the show. You were probably one of my first guests, I guess, a couple of years ago. And so I love having you on because there's always great to learn from you. Just really see your growth and see like what is going on in your business behind the scenes and all the things. So I'm so happy that you're here to chat with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah. So before we get started, do you mind just kind of telling the audience, like, who you are, a little bit about you, and yeah, we'll go from there.
Yeah. So I'm Marta Spirk. I'm originally from Brazil, but I've been in the States for over 10 years now. Married my American husband, and then after a few years had triplets. They're 8. And in this process, I went from having a career in languages. So I started teaching English when I was 14. I became a court interpreter, translator, all of that. I decided to start my own online business. And it's evolved into mentoring and coaching women entrepreneurs how to become more visible. So having the courage to really promote themselves, not be afraid of self-promotion, and understand that it takes belief in yourself and in your business to move your business forward.
Love that. So let's talk about little Marta when she was maybe during those developmental years of us. I feel like I've gone through this, and you know this, like we talked about this in our group chat. There's like this little version of us when we're growing up. We have these aspirations. We have like these big dreams. So tell us about that little Marta that obviously was the seed to this current Marta who's doing music and doing so many freaking amazing things with your business. So can you just kind of tell us, like, who was that Marta that got us here today?
Yeah. So I am the youngest of 2. I have an older sister. She's 4 years older than me. And from a very young age, I was very flashy and vocal. I like to say that I grew up on my own mantra of the squeaky wheel gets the grease. I've never been afraid to ask for what I want. Extroverted, wanted to be the center of attention. And I know that's part personality, part I feel that I wanted to stand out because I came in second. So I wanted to make sure I had my place and my parents' attention more than anything. And that's really come about even more after having kids. I realized if I was going to foster my kids' individualities, especially with them being multiples, I needed to understand a little bit more about myself and what makes me unique and what I bring to the table, right? And what I want to do. And so I started digging back into the past, and this is a lot of what I discuss in my first book, understanding those wounds from childhood, that just my perception of childhood, that my parents had my sister first. And so there were conversations and things, stories that I would hear my mom say that she didn't really want another child, that I was a surprise, but a good surprise. But obviously, we tend to gravitate towards the negative side of stories and thinking, well, she didn't really want me, but did she want me because she said it was good? So that was really the basis. But also from a very young age, I developed this desire to know English and to be fluent in English and to live in the United States one day. So that was a big, big dream that I had that no one else in my family really shared. And I even had friends in school as I was growing up and demonstrating these desires and these gifts that would say, that's kind of strange. You're not patriotic. Why are you so into the United States? It doesn't make any sense. I didn't have family or anything. It was just something that I was born with. And I think a lot of it had to do with this competitive mindset that I developed. Like, I want to be number one. I want to show up. And also the performer in me. I would see movies and I would see concerts and artists, because obviously in Brazil, there's a huge influence of American culture. And I would think, that's what I want to do. That's what I want to be. And here I am several years later, living in the United States and fulfilling so many of those dreams.
Yeah, so I, like you, I wanted to be a singer. However, I, unlike you, cannot sing. It's like you are a beautiful singer. And so I feel that all of us have that inner child of us that wants to be seen, and then we go through life and, we're told certain things, and some of us break through it and make something of it. And then some of us allow it just to compound and really make ourselves small. And so you shared the story of like, wanting to be in the spotlight, wanting that attention, being that squeaky wheel. Was there any part of you or maybe experience as you're going through life where you almost stopped yourself from fully realizing your potential?
Yeah, I think there were several instances in school and also with my parents where I was, told to be quiet or to tone it down. And I think especially because of the striking difference between me and my sister, she's very quiet, private, and reserved human being. And then here I come, kind of like this thunder disruptor. But, in some ways in a good way. And I think at times it was also my perception of things, of saying, Marta, I remember in preschool, one of my teachers, I had several bracelets growing up. I always loved wearing accessories. And she took away my bracelets because I talked too much and I talked too loud. But, other kids do that too. And now I see it with my kids. So there were comments and things like that and challenges along the way. But I think my desire to stand out has always been greater than any criticism.
Yeah. I love that about you too. Like you're an action taker. You have this like idea and then you take action. It's not just like about visibility, but even taking that action, there is some part of you that you're exposing yourself to the possible failure. And the fact that you just keep going and think it's like everything you touch turns to gold. That's how I see it. You allow yourself to embrace your talents and your gifts without allowing those past things to hold you back. And so with the work that you do with other women and them, coaching them into feeling safe, really, to be visible and to actually have the strategy as well to increase their visibility in the media, because you've done a TED Talk, you have a book and all the things. What would you say is like some things that you recognize that maybe other people don't recognize that is like a pattern or a habit that they're running? And once they can realize that, then it's like, okay, once we identify this, we can break free. Could you think of like maybe 3 top patterns that, women that are afraid to really be seen exhibit, I guess you could say?
Definitely. I would say the very first thing is being afraid of making mistakes. You won't do anything different if you're very afraid of taking a risk. And every day in life, we're taking risks. I mean, you jump into your car, you're taking a risk. Anything really. I mean, you're putting food in your body, you're taking a risk. But then there are other things that we perceive as even bigger risks, and we tell ourselves that it is a bigger risk. And then that's when we stop ourselves because our brain's like, no, this is not safe. Just like what you're saying, we tell ourselves it's not safe, we're not going to do it. So there is that element of it, especially as entrepreneurs. If you're going to put yourself out there to say, I have something to offer and charge for it, my gosh, then comes the whole, money beliefs and all of that. You have to be willing to have someone say something against you and say, no, I'm not willing to pay for that, or I don't think you're qualified. So, and then that jumps into the second one is being afraid of rejection. It's very much tied into that. And I believe that as women, we have a bigger fear of being rejected, of not belonging. We put a bigger weight, I think, on people's opinions of us. It hurts more for us, I think, when someone doesn't approve of us, or maybe it doesn't appear to be supportive, because there's that as well. We create stories in our heads that, oh my gosh, they didn't say that it was good, so maybe it wasn't good, depending on that external validation so much. And finally, not believing that you have what it takes, not believing in yourself. That's like the foundation. You don't believe in yourself, therefore people's opinions of you are more important than your opinion of yourself. And therefore, you're afraid of making a mistake and taking risks, because if they don't like it, then that means something about you, right? If somebody says that wasn't so good, we take it super personally. And this is, an exercise that I am constantly working on, really, is not being afraid of criticism, because nobody likes being criticized. Like what I said about the stories that I heard growing up, it didn't matter how many times my parents said, oh my gosh, you brought so much joy into our lives because you're so bubbly. I would hold on to the things that they said of, I didn't really want another kid. It was really hard. Both can be true. As a parent now myself, I absolutely can say that both can be true, but we hold on to the negative things. So I think those are the 3 things that stand out to me. And I am not free from them. I have just learned, like you said, to recognize them and to tap into the part of me that says, I'm going to do it anyway. And I've actually been reading for the first time a book called Mindset. It talks about the difference between a growth mindset and a fixed mindset. I'd heard about this concept through many different coaching programs, but I didn't really know where it originated. And the author explains it beautifully how we're constantly really shifting between these two in our daily lives. Something happens, somebody says something, you step that offends you or that, makes you insecure. You step into the fixed mindset of, well, I suck anyways, I can't do it. But you can, if you recognize it, jump back into that growth of, well, how can I do it differently then? Or what can I learn from this feedback? Or this is not true and I'll just keep going forward.
Oh, that, yeah. And I always say in my programs, there's no such thing as failure, only feedback, which that's part of that NLP concept. On the other side of getting over these things and recognizing these signs, what is possible for someone? And the reason why I think that you're the best person to answer this is because I swear you have a lucky horseshoe up your butt because you're always so lucky with things. And just, again, things that you touch turn to gold, and you really do manifest things that you're like, I want this, I'm going to get it. And so to me, when you step out of your comfort zone and you just go for it and take that risk, that is where you activate your lucky girl syndrome. So tell us a little bit about the things that you are able to manifest because you put yourself out there, and then maybe some tips that someone could at least ease into it so that gets them to expand their comfort zone and then maybe even expand it a little bit more later on.
Yeah, definitely.
Hey, are you thinking about launching a podcast or taking yours to the next level? Juliana Barati and her team are the experts you need. They take care of everything from episode funnel design to production and marketing, so you can focus on creating content that connects. Check out julianabarbati.com and mention I sent you.
Well, this makes me think of a quote that I really like that says, what is desired by you is destined for you. I think what makes it different about me compared to other people is that I have allowed myself to desire things. I have made it okay to want things. And I have acknowledged it, not always. Sometimes it's taken me years, like the whole musical thing. I've had this desire since I was a little girl, but I'm now really pursuing it in my late 30s, and talk about so many, mindset or limiting beliefs in my mind saying I can't do this because of all of this evidence. You have kids, you're married, no way. And still, because of the growth that I have experienced in my life, especially in the last 7 years and after having my kids and starting my business, I have understood that it starts with recognizing the desire and entertaining the desire instead of being like, oh, I could never. That's how you never fulfill a dream. As soon as it pops into your head, you're like, I could never, as opposed to it pops into my head. Interesting. What could that look like? Maybe this is step 10. What would step 1 be in the direction of that dream? Many people stop themselves at 0, right? And they don't move forward. So I think that's what, to your point, action activates the lucky girl syndrome.
Yeah.
I love that name. Which at the end of the day is not really luck. There's a trainer that says, I'm sure she has this quote from someone else, but she says, it's not really luck. It's when preparation meets opportunity. So you putting yourself in positions that if somebody makes an invitation, you're ready. Right? You're not going to be like, I'll think about it in 5 years. This is one of the things that people tell me that makes me cringe is they're like, oh, I really want to do this in about 5 years. What? If you really want to do it, so let's say step 1 is going to start in 5 years, then what's step 10 going to be? You know what I mean? If in 5 years you want this accomplished, then step 1 could start now because you don't know how long it's going to take, right? Or you don't know what obstacles you're going to face. Or maybe you don't know how the direction is going to shift. And at the end of the day, you don't really want that. But as you take action, you're going to find out. And this is the other thing that I've learned is action brings clarity. So maybe you have this desire and the imagery that you created for this desire is X. But as you start taking steps, X starts kind of turning into Y. But you wouldn't know unless you started the process. And this is one of the things that I really love to do is let me try this out. And this is where I am right now with the music as well. Because one of my limiting beliefs was I can't do this because what am I going to go sing in bars? Like, what am I? I'm not 20, I can't do this. But then I started giving myself the permission to, well, why don't I start singing in events that I'm speaking for? That's natural. I speak all the time. I'm a part of networking groups why don't I start asking, hey, is there room? And I've been so grateful and pleasantly surprised by people saying, yes, please. And then inviting me for other opportunities to the point where I started entertaining the idea of, well, what about actually doing some events? Let's see, maybe I will sing at a wedding, which I have before. Actually, not too long ago, a friend of mine asked me to sing as I walked down the aisle because I was one of the maids of honor. But I don't know. Let's see how I feel. If I think it's exhausting and it doesn't pay well, then now I know. You know what I'm saying? So that's the mindset.
Hold up, let me jump into the episode really quickly. If you've been listening and nodding along like, yes, this is me, I made something just for you. Take my free quiz called What's Your Business Energetic Archetype? And you're going to discover what exactly is in your way from creating the business that feels like an endless flow of fun, productivity, and profits. You'll get a personalized mini plan and access to one of my favorite workshops for free. So head on over to vanessaandmiller.com/energy quiz and take it right now. Or actually finish this episode and then go and take it. All right, let's get back into the episode. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, and you're right, because I know that I've experienced some things where I'm like, once I started doing them, I'm like, I don't even know if I want to do this anymore. But had I not tried it, I wouldn't have known. It's kind of like tasting food. You know what I mean? Like if you're trying the food, then you at least know what kind of food you like and if you want to eat it again.
Exactly.
I love that. Yeah, because it also gives you a sense of like, I'm safe to do this because I'm not going to be married to this, And I think that a lot, at least from what I've witnessed and I've experienced myself, is that it's the safety around commitment, the safety around like, well, then am I going to be stuck here? What am I going to have to do here? And is this safe? And I know that as a woman who desires a lot and our subconscious mind is like built to like want more and more and more, it's kind of like, is this going to be it once I commit to this? And so I love that you mentioned this. It's so accurate. Okay. So I know that you've been doing a lot of like keynote singing, speaking type of things. And then you also have been singing at different sports events. Mm-hmm. How did you land those opportunities?
Yeah, these were things that really have come to me. But I believe, again, I have put myself out there so that they could come to me. So back to that preparation meets opportunity. It all first started out with me seeking it. So for a long time, I've been obsessed with singing the national anthem. Like, do you remember Napster days when you could, download any song?
Yeah.
Spotify didn't exist. I remember because then you could download whole albums, right? It was like amazingness without having to go to the store and buy a CD. And I downloaded this whole album of LeAnn Rimes. And one of the tracks was her singing the national anthem a cappella. And I was like, what a beautiful song. Because I didn't grow up listening to the anthem. I'm in Brazil. I would listen to the Brazilian national anthem. And I kind of started singing it and memorized it. And then when I came to the US after getting married and I was doing my master's, there was a call out for students to audition to sing the national anthem at commencement one year. And I was like, I'm not a citizen, but I'm going to audition. And ultimately, I didn't get it. But that thing was kind of in my mind. So back to what I was saying, like I had that desire. I pursued it a little. It didn't happen. So I could have just dropped it. Years and years later, I want to say almost 10 years later, I heard something on the radio about a contest to sing the national anthem at a rodeo here locally at a country station. And I auditioned, I sent it out, and I won. And so after that, because by then I had built my business and my network and I was sharing this on social media, people started asking, hey, I have an event. Would you like to come sing? So it started with me taking the action, right? And showcasing it and saying, hey, I can do this. This is one of the things that I do. And then opportunities started coming about. And by far, my favorite was my neighbor across the street heard that I was singing at the Speedway for races. And he came up to me one day and he said, do you want to sing for the Denver Nuggets one day? And I was like, excuse me? Yes. Turns out one of his best friends is the one that books the talent for the games. And so I've gotten to sing twice there through the university because I'm part of the Alumni Association. I have gotten to sing for the Rockies, so the baseball team here in Denver. And so all these things started coming, but it wasn't just like I was sitting around. I had never done anything like it. And somebody asked me, hey, do you want to go sing the anthem? I had to start taking action. But those things just coming out of nowhere, which I know they weren't, but they sort of were really confirmation of this is available to you. What could happen if you actually put yourself out there and started seeking it even more. So that's what I've been doing.
Love that. One of my exercises that I did recently was going and identifying the different layers, I guess, if you will, or the different levels of my ideal client. And what I've noticed is that the women that I tend to attract and most likely are listening to this podcast are women that they're putting themselves out there and they are expanding. And so they're not afraid to put themselves out there, but they've hit this like plateau and they may be going through patterns. They may be in a trance that they don't recognize. And I know that you probably could recognize doing the work that you've done and working all through all the things that you've worked through and shed them. So could you give us an example of like, okay, now that they know these things or now they have achieved these certain things and they're putting themselves out there, there might be listening saying, yeah, Marta, I'm doing those things, yet I'm still not where I want to be. What kind of advice or tips can you give those people?
I would say always go back to, but what do you really want? Because I'm actually experiencing this now. And I think it's cycles of life. I've built my visibility business, coaching business for 7 years. And it's been interesting to see how now at this time, things are shifting for me where I am not only exploring something different, but considering making that my priority. I'm not there yet, but after a while, you start, wanting to make changes. It's just the way that life is, maybe you want to buy a new car, or maybe you want to move somewhere else. And it goes back to recognizing the desire and entertaining the desire. And I say, I'm really going through this of being like, oh my gosh, I created this whole thing. I can't just walk away, and I'm not going to walk away. It's just a natural transition. Things change. And I'm not the person that I was yesterday even, right? So it's natural for me to not want the same exact things forever. And this doesn't make me a bad person. This doesn't, right? Because in all the stories we start creating, oh my gosh, what if I completely shift? People are going to think I am, a flake and that I can't be consistent. And at the end of the day, no one's thinking anything. It's you being afraid and telling yourself those stories. And back to those 3 fears that I talked about is you being afraid of taking a risk. Why would I leave this comfortable place where I've lived for the last 7 years, where I know what's happening, and go explore over here? That's terrifying, but it's also exhilarating because it's new and because it's something that I want. And that brings up fears, that brings up insecurities. In many ways, I feel like I'm beginning again, except I know I'm not because I have so much more wisdom than I had 7 years ago, but it's new. I was actually talking to one of my mentors that is a musician and has been doing private events for a long time. And then he launched a course, which I purchased. And so he's essentially coaching people. I don't know if he calls himself a coach, but he's telling people, hey, this is how you find opportunities. This is how you optimize your profile. Like he's teaching all these things. And I had a conversation with him when I first joined the program. And I was like, oh my gosh, I feel like I'm beginning. And he's like, well, I'm right with you on reverse. I have no problem going in front of a crowd, playing for 3 hours. This is what I've been doing for years. But then you handle a client that's like, your system is not working. I don't know what to do. Like, I know how to handle that when a client comes to me and it's like, the coaching is not working. I've dealt with that before. But then going into the performance world, it's different because I haven't done it. It's really the same thing. It's just doing something new is always scary. And for those of us that are parents, this happens with our children all of the time. Especially when they're little. You have a little one, right? When they're learning new things, they may get frustrated and be like, I don't want to try this. Oh my gosh. I remember when my kids were starting to ride a bike without training wheels. It was like pulling teeth for one of them. He's like tears. And I remember doing the same thing when I started driving. I would tell my parents, I'm never going to drive. And here I am. I jump in the car every single day for hours and I don't even think twice.
Yeah. Yeah. I love the way you started answering that question is go back to your desires, because what I am taking in is that it's not you're broken. It's not that you need a new strategy. And maybe this is on my awareness because I just posted something about this, is that sometimes we just need to not think that we need to get answers outside of ourselves. We need to be like, wait a minute, do we really even want this? And maybe that is just the universe trying to like halt us. Be like, wait a minute, I'm going to give this to you, but is this really what you want? And so I love that you say that, because I know that as women who get almost addicted to expansion and growth, we can automatically assume that the problem is us, and that we need to work on that.
Mm-hmm.
So I
Yeah.
love that answer. Thank you so much.
Totally. I think in many ways, the coaching industry has created that for us. There's always people telling you there's something else you need to heal, right? So you got these two spectrums of, yes, you need to start being more self-aware, but then there's only so much self-awareness until you go insane and think that there's something else that you need to fix. Where do you find that happy medium and the balance of, I know myself, I can trust myself. I don't need to be dependent on someone else telling me what I need to do. It's a fine line sometimes.
Yeah. Oh, awesome. Thank you so much for being here. This has been a great conversation. And can you just tell the audience like where they can come hang out with you if they want to get to know you better and just, work with you?
Definitely. So I am visible. So you can find me on most major platforms, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. Just look for Marta Spirk. I do have my podcast, The Empowered Woman. My books are on Amazon. You can visit my website, martaspirk.com. And if you look on Spotify, Apple Music, you will find my original music as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And one last question before we wrap up. I ask everyone this.
Okay.
What are you reading or listening to on Audible?
Oh gosh, I started reading Jordan Peterson's Maps of Meaning. I really like the way he thinks and the way he talks. It really needs attention because it's very convoluted and dense, but it's like massage to my brain. It's very stimulating because it's like, oh my gosh, I need to pay attention because he jumps around and talks about so many things. It reminds me of conversations that I have with my friends. You're going to want to get to a point, but then you go all the way over here. And it's like, all right, let me go back to this. But so
It's like talking to Chrissy.
Exactly. So this is what I'm listening right now, but I'm still finishing that mindset book by Carol. I forget what her last name is, but it's really good too.
Okay. And it's Mapping is the name of his book?
Maps of Meaning.
Maps of Meaning. Awesome. I'll be sure to link it. So thank you so much. And we'll catch you next time on the next episode of The Aligned Businesswoman. Bye-bye for now. Thank you for joining me on this episode of the Aligned Businesswoman podcast. I'm your host, Vanessa Ann Miller, and I'm so excited to share some goodies with you. Head over to the show notes so you can grab your free gift and make sure to leave a review and join me inside the Aligned Businesswoman Facebook group. Until next week. Bye-bye, my love. Loving these podcasts? Want to take things deeper? Did you know I was able to grow my business by 3,000% in less than 1 year? By strategically setting up my business and my schedule for success. Check out my free download, How to Write an Energetically Aligned Business Plan, where I take you through the routines and rituals that set me up for success. You'll be able to discover what has helped my clients double their revenue in 90 days and what helped me grow my business by 3,000% in less than 1 year. Visit vanessaandmiller.com/CEO-day.